Hello, how are you doing? Again, Sam Tolbert, Sound of Joy Music Services, and we're here now doing another stream covering the transition phase of a lot of young church musicians. If you looked at my description for my stream this afternoon, you have a lot of young musicians who are keyboard players. That's the first thing that they were able to run out and get, and they come very proficient playing on the keyboard. But the one thing they're always eyeing, how you doing, DB? Thanks for coming in. The one thing that they're always eyeing is the seat. The seat on what some have termed the beast, the Hammond B3. Even though they've got their keyboards, and it could be a Yamaha keyboard, could be a Roland keyboard, could be Korg, Cronus, could be any number of Yamaha motif, but they all eye the guy who's sitting on the beast, because that is the ultimate instrument to actually master. All the keyboards can give you all of these matriculated sounds, and even some of them are built to mimic the actual Hammond sound for those who don't want to, who come into a place to play, and there's no Hammond there, but they're yearning to get to that sound. Well, virtually, and I have shown this already here on my channel, the native, is it Native Instruments? It was the Native Instruments Hammond B3X software. I was able to get one of my older Axiom keyboards to semi-work with it, so I could sort of simulate some of the actual drawbar settings. There'll be no overhead showing me play, because this is more or less to educate any young musician who is eyeing that seat. You know, sometimes they'll always hover around the organist after the service, or even during service. I watch these younger guys on Facebook videos and on YouTube videos, and they're all hovering around the organist, trying to glean, what is he doing? Why is he pulling drawbars out? How is he using his feet, and how is he getting that chord sound? Well, virtually, I want to try and demystify some of that. Now, the Hammond B3 organ is one of the last of the dinosaurs, I will say, in playing music. But because it was built so well, it's virtually featured somehow, either electronically, or in my case, virtually by a computer, in just about any production you hear played, outside of maybe an actual symphony orchestra. I've yet to see one placed in the middle, although I'm sure it has. I just haven't seen it yet. But it's emulates what a pipe organ, virtual pipe organ with tone wheels and huge bellows that have holes cut in them for the different sizes. It was designed to emulate that for churches who could not afford the $100,000 organs. But it slowly found its way into the jazz world as a organ that can change the whole sound of what's happening around all the other instruments. It's not like the piano, which is always going to be a piano. Of course, you have keyboards that can emulate many different types of piano, but an organ has a sound all to itself, and virtually, I'm going to be able to show you some of that. So, if you have any questions, those that are maybe coming into the room, I'm looking for responses. I am watching my channel from my iPad. I always make sure that I don't miss any questions. So, I'm going to change scenes here. It's going to get a little dark for a second, because when I play my keyboard, I just turn my chair and I say mosey up to it, but my keyboard is not there. And when you're playing an organ and you have foot pedals, you have to be higher so that you don't get cramped in your legs when you're actually playing the organ. G-Man, how you doing? G-Man, I was one of the I don't say favored, because I had to work with my father. My father he still is, at 90, I think he'll be 93 this year. he still repairs Hammond organ. In the New York City area, he was a certified Hammond organ repair tech. The actual Hammond company would call him in, because I know, because I had to ride with him, and he would get jobs at different churches and at different clubs for Hammond up in the upper New York area or in Brooklyn to go and service these organs. So I got to see firsthand, and as a young musician, testing out these organs for him while he was repairing them, what you can do with this sound. Again, the keyboard, the MIDI keyboard I'm using does not give me access to all the different drawbars, so you may see me doing it manually through the computer and then demonstrating the ones that do work to see how that sound is actually made. You, the musician playing, determine what sound you want to hear, which means you have to have an organ that is, number one, properly serviced. All the drawbars are working, all your foot pedal contacts are working, and none of the foot pedal pushers are actually broken. The tubes have been replaced. The organ has been oiled so that the motors don't whine and give you feedback while they're spinning. It's an electronic mechanical beast. It weighs about 400 pounds. I know, because I had to help lift some of them, put them on dollies, and wheel them in and out of churches and out of clubs as a young man and as I got older. So I know from what I speak. I've worked with my father when he has removed the entire double manuals of an organ, all those wires in the back, and then marked them so that once they've been repaired, and by repaired, if they break keys like some church musicians do from playing so enthusiastically, they'll break a key. There has to be completely stripped apart just to replace it, and then you got to put it back in. I know, because I broke one as a youngster. I was scared to death that I broke my father's organ, but I was playing around with something I shouldn't have, swinging around, and bam, broke it. So I'm aware that it is a... how you doing, Chris? That's what I'm going to be showing you. I have the Hammond, I want to say it's a native instrument. I think it's IK. Let me just verify who I always want to give credit, because I do have just looking to see what is the correct term for this one. I do have a video up. I believe it's the IK Multimedia Hammond B3 Organ. That's what I'm going to be demonstrating. I have a whole 2-hour, I think, presentation on that software. So I'm going to be using that as my teaching tool virtually. But for musicians who keep eyeing over to the organ, and you may have the musician who because he's been playing, my father does not like them. He doesn't like the new transistor Leslie tone cabinets. He hates those because they wind up, they're always burning out the Leslie motor in them. He doesn't like the track 2 devices that guys have been putting into these organs to try to boost the sound. He likes the Hammond organ in its truest form, with the correct tubes, with the correct amplifiers. And for years, when I worked with him, we would replace the bass speaker probably in every church that I could imagine in the New York City area, because musicians would go in the back and turn that dial up to 10, burn the coil in the main speaker, and then be crying because they can't hear the bass anymore. Or they would actually blow out the horn for the Leslie. I often said, when you're not trained properly to play an instrument the way it should be played, you think that you should be heard over even the person in the microphone, and you will actually blast it. I'm from the era of when the B3000, Hammond's first electronic organ, came out, and we thought it was, comparable for an electronic organ to have a built-in transposer, and you could, it was new, I'll put it like that. But it never really replaced the sound of the RT3 that we had, because we moved that downstairs when this one was moved upstairs. And it was full of trouble, constant trouble. Many times during the services, I would have to go stop playing the organ because the sound would just leave it. Couldn't hear the organ playing. Get off the organ while it was still turned on. Take off the rear cover, reach on the inside, and start banging on the contacts to bring the volume back. Many a time. But that was an issue with that organ. Though it was, to me, and in my father's thought, it was rushed into production, and they didn't pay any consequence to where these organs are going to be placed. In churches that have, when they turn the heat off during the week, it gets cold and condensation builds up, and that cold and that condensation gets on these contacts, and then they lose connection. So when you get there a week later and you start to play, sparks begin to fly. You hear that popping noise from it, and then it gets carbonated, and it becomes, what's the word we used to use? An arcing, would arc it, and it would get dirty, and the contacts would get dirty, and you have to actually physically go in there, remove and shake the contacts up and down just to get a good connection. So the Hammond B3000 and the X77, I believe it was, X66, all those electronic organs after Hammond built the original organ were all nightmares. And I was there as my father was repairing them. Every Saturday night he had some church to go to repair them. Let's see, the one church I played for had an old Thompson, but it never really sounded right because I was used to Hammond. Yeah, once you've had a Hammond and it was a good working one, and to me they all have different feels depending upon what era it was, how it's been maintained, how close the Leslie amplifier is to you, and what Leslie if it is. And I'll show you on this one. It does give you some different versions of a Leslie organ because they all have a different sound because they all had different uses. But I'm talking too much. Let me get right to it. Thank you for those who have come in. Let me see, DB, G-Man, and Chris. Let me get over to the organ. Now, what you're seeing is the virtual look. It's let's make sure I can. Sometimes they would crystallize on that Thompson. We kept the repair tech there. Well, yeah, church repair techs probably came into a church, if not once a week, twice a week, because if there were more services and if you had different musicians on the organ, they really gave it a workout. Gave it a workout. I know I was there with my father, and it was constant repairs. You came in there, you knew what you were going to do. You knew you were going to solder, which is the job I had was to solder the drawbar switches in the back, find the ones that don't work, take off the back panel, go in the back of my soldering iron, solder the wires back, pull the pedals out, and replace the pedal pushers because they would usually get broken from the organist stomping so hard, and sometimes they would pull the pedals out believing they could fix it, pull it out incorrectly, push it back in, and it would cause them to bend like this when they should be straight. Yeah, those were nightmare days, which is why I've always said, musicians should get before they go to the Hammond, they should be taught they should get a walk around and taught how to carefully play it. So this is my version here. Let me just turn off the percussion. And let's adjust the drawbars. As you can see, just by moving the drawbars, my sound changed. Not as deep as it should be. remember, I got to take off my shoe when I play my foot pedals. I have MIDI foot pedals, and they're the smaller ones, and my shoe is too big for them. My feet are not. Now this should let me adjust the drawbars, right? So now I'm using my axiom to adjust the drawbars, which do work. You see my expression pedal works. These are the drawbars which I can move. I believe this one works. Take that down. So, let me just answer any questions. I mean, no doubts about it. You know your stuff. Again, we're talking 13-year-old helping to move an organ out of a church so that we could take it to my father's shop to work on it. Sometimes he would strip it down and redo the entire organ, just clean it up and turn it into something really pretty. So, and I actually cut my teeth. I think I did more organ playing than I did piano playing. All the techniques that I show you on the piano, I did them on the organ first, because we usually had one in the shop for repair, or he had his own that we were allowed to practice on if we didn't mess it up. Now that bass note should be deeper than that, so I'm going to go do some checking here and find out why it's not. What do we got here? Nope, it's not the one I want. That's not the one I want. That bass note should be deeper. Going into the settings. Why can't I see it? No, not here either. There's a settings window that I can go to and adjust what cabinet I'm using. Cabinets, here we go. All right, so these are your different cabinets. This is on a 122. Let's switch to a, come on now. 147. Let's see, bring up our lows for the bass. And a little bit of the mid. Take some of that back. Change the amplifier to 147. Okay, it's a little bit better. Okay, the iKey multimedia production. Who joined us? Oh, my brother-in-law. Let me see if I can read your comment. Any foot pedal tips? I'm always playing on wrong bass notes, and then even more challenging when the songs are up-tempo and a praise break. Help me, brother-in-law. Yes, brother-in-law. Play without your shoes on. Take your shoes off and train your feet to hit each note. On your left hand, be able to do bass on your left hand and on your feet. Here we go. That is the only way to practice. And when you're playing the organ, don't wear Timberlands and don't wear sneakers. Wear, what is the term I want to use? If you can wear floor shine shoes, they have a nice slick bottom. You don't want shoes when you're playing bass notes that's going to help you, that's going to let you stick to the bottom of the key. You want your feet to be able to glide. And you can't do that with Timberlands, sneakers, or soft shoes that have a nice, what's the word I want? That have grips on the bottom. To be able to play the bass notes fluently, learn the heel-toe method. Heel-toe, let me see. Heel-toe, heel-toe, heel-toe. Wait, let me get this right. I don't have the right organ underneath me. Heel-toe, 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 toe. The heel-toe method gets your feet walking like this when you're actually playing on the organ. Bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, bottom, top, bottom, top. And without shoes on, and wear some heavy socks. I don't just the word church socks, just from a practice standpoint, because you want to be able to feel the note before you play it. Now, again, I've got MIDI foot pedals on here now, but if I were to go to A flat, I can go right to A flat, down to G, to C, F, B flat. Without thinking about it, I can think about where I want to go. F. Let's see, any other questions? I don't want to miss any. Siobhan, I'm using the IK Multimedia Hammond B-3X software. Cost me for life. I want to get some MIDI pedals, but they are expensive. Well, yeah. Here's how I justify getting anything I buy. I have a separate bank account for when I want to buy something for myself, so I don't have to justify anything because I work for it. I save it up, and then when I'm ready to go break my purchase, it just shows up at the door by Amazon. But now, don't let me mess up your household. But for the home Hammond B3 organist, if you did to use the actual virtual organ that I'm using right now, MIDI pedals are a must. My pedals are probably, when did I get these? They're over 10 years old. They're over 10 years old, and they have never given me a problem. There is one that is a little bit sticky, which is C. I think it's because, when you practice and your foot is always going to be, the most weight is going to be on the C foot pedal, but all the rest are fine. And I can play them if though I were using my left hand. Again, I always say when you're going to practice with a purpose in mind. I don't want to miss any. I don't want to miss any questions. Yes, Siobhan. I originally had the native instrument Hammond B4, and then they stopped supporting it because it was 32-bit, and I didn't want to keep going to an older computer just to have the access to it when I was using newer software, especially Pro Tools does not recognize 32-bit software anymore. So I do have one or two computers that still has that on that, but I bit the bullet. This program is not cheap. It's $299 for this program. But because I do productions now where I want that true Hammond organ sound, I said, well, I can justify it by adding a little more to what I charge for tracks. And I say if you want that true Hammond organ, that wah-wah sound, keys dropping in, dropping out. And just like playing the piano, I have to hear the chords I'm going to play, and especially when I'm just, as I'm doing right now, just making conversation through music. I don't know what I'm doing. If I were going to pick a song, I'd look and see what drawbars, which is important. You see how the drawbars are labeled. Each one has its own associated tone with it. I believe this one I can move, right. They have an associated tone with them. I gotta find the ones I can move. I can move you, and I can move you. And when you think that you've found the sound that you want, and if you don't like it, throw that Leslie in there, and you can adjust the sounds out. The drawbars is the number one exciting feature about the Hammond organ, that you can on the fly adjust your tones. Now, of course, you're only seeing one manual here. I wasn't unable to get my keyboards set up to have both manuals going comfortably and still get the drawbars to work. But for one manual is fine. And most musicians who are coming over from the piano or from a keyboard are accustomed to playing with one manual. You give them two manuals and they're lost. They're not sure what they're supposed to do with the second manual. And there's always that question. Do you play on the top manual? Do you play on the lower one or the top one? The top one only gives you the percussive sound, which is good for the jazz musicians. So that's what the upper manual gives you access to. Only going to get that from the upper manual. The lower manual, I have found, for me, is where I'm comfortable at, because then I'll use the upper manual for chording and playing bass notes if I'm not using my feet. But I do use my feet, I will say 100% of the time when I'm playing. As you saw, I could play there and let my feet do what my left-hand bass would be doing. And fall where I want it to fall. And this is all going on in my head. I'm thinking where I want the bass notes to go, and at the same time, what my right and my left hand is also doing. This is the magic that an organ player has. Now, this, yes, in some settings, a bass player does not want an organ player playing bass. If you're fortunate to have that setting where you got a bass player that can mimic in your head what you want to do, that's great. But for me, I'm more comfortable doing the bass that I want to do, because I can change it without having to look over and say, hey, we're going to the 4 here, we're going to the 5, now we're going to be in the, I don't want to take my hands off the keyboard. I want to be concentrating musically on what I'm actually doing. So I may not get a bass player to be happy with me. Because to be calling out numbers while I got chords in my head, I may stay here in the G, Then I may want to go up to the floor, if you're playing for a preacher. When you guys are playing for preachers, then you really get to go off musically, and you don't want to be hindered by a bass player not being there with you. I'm just moving around some of these drawbars. So, and I'm just demonstrating as limited as I can, because my keyboard does not give me access to all the drawbars, how you can move them around. Throwing in your Leslie. Let me see, I don't want to miss any questions. Throw them in as you're playing, and then be able to change the tones as you hear them. Well, welcome, Sub-Zero. And Gospel Music for Life, thank you. Thanks, G-Man. Good to know. I was considering getting one based on a few reviews, but considering the high-pitched issue, I can see that drive me crazy. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, Gospel Music for Life. Unless you got a bass player that practices with you all the time, they'll never be able to capture what you hear. And again, I was doing some, eight bar jazz, so everybody knows where you're going to be going. Let's see, I'm going to do a setting here that you will normally see jazz musicians use, and I have a workbook that has a lot of settings in there. Here we go. So if you're not going to use foot pedal bass, you're going to use this setting. So that's a setting that a musician who's playing the Hammond will use to give that deep bass, boom, 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 boom. And on the right hand, he's going to usually in Evans, and that he may have this on the lower manual or on the upper manual. Well, probably the lower manual, because in the upper manual he's going to want to turn on his percussion sounds. I hate to miss any question. Let's see. Get out of the way. But, and again, you have a whole set of other buttons here. Normal, this is to the left side, normal, swell, great swell, the chorus buttons. These settings are to the choice of the person that's playing. Sometimes you want an actual cathedral sound, so you're going to move that chorus button, where you see where I got it now on C3, if I can get my mouse to move it, and go to, let's see, C1. Let's let you hear how those changes take place when it's being moved. Let's just pull some of these out. So as you move it, you hear that slight vibrato, a little more tinnier in the sound, more vibrato, a little bit of a chorus sound, but not as heavy, more vibrato, and then none at all. It's to the liking of the person that's playing. I'm partial to being on the C3 with the vibrato great off and the vibrato swell off. Usually I'll have it set up to normal, because I like to be able to get that pop that you hear. in the back of the organ. Unless of course I'm doing hymns. Then if I'm doing hymns, then I'll have a full section of drawbars pulled out. Let's see, if I'm going to do a hymn, this may be my setting right here, A flat. Always getting a phone call. Let me see who this is. It's usually robocalls. Hello.
This is our final attempt.
Yeah, robocalls. I get harassed by these robocalls, but that setting that you see right there is generally one I will use for hymns. If I was going to do, was it "To God Be the Glory"? And that Leslie makes so much of an actual big difference whenever you kick it on. So to have the ability to manipulate sounds real time, that's what the Hammond organ gives to you. And as you can see from the image that you're seeing, my foot pedals are used to help support, as I say, the lowest note, which is usually the bass note. So now I don't have to play bass notes on my left hand. I can now chord. That's my cycle of fifths. I always practice the cycle of fifths whenever I'm playing. There was one off. What has any? This count. Again, I've never played any of the. How can I put them? Knockoff Hammond organs. The Viscount. I've never even played the Hammond which is that the SK series. I never played any of those, so I never had those to really measure against this is the electronic version. For me, the electronic one gives me as close to a real Hammond sound, where I can go in and, as you can see, I can manipulate what cabinets I'm using. I can manipulate how deep a bass I want. Do I want a tinnier? It's like being able to change the amplifier sounds. And even still, for the most part, the music that I create that has a Hammond organ sound, Hammond is not leading in it anyway. It's actual being supported around the other instrumentation. I am going to do a video. Not a video, but a production where the Hammond organ is the actual leading sound. Once I can get my drawbars, and on this particular software, I'm using my Axion 61 because it's got some drawbar feature to it. But on my keyboard, I can go into the presets, and the presets are these buttons that are here below your keys, and as you can see, it calls out what they are: jazz and rock. I think you can see that. Yeah. Full swell, trumpet, swell, diaphragm, oboe horn. These are all the same sounds you would get on a real Hammond. It's the oboe sound. If you're going to do a nice hymn, let's see. Off the switch. Already preset for you. B flat. There's right. I don't normally do that song in the key of G flat, so I had to think of where I was. French horn. Now, is it a real sounding French horn? If you had a keyboard, you get a much more authentic sounding French horn. But for a pipe organ to be able to emulate these sounds, and again, I've heard musicians who can play the Hammond organ. I play with it. There are musicians who can actually play this and can actually play me under the table, who can use all these presets, and you just stand there amazed listening. It's all about having a command of your scales, number one, which means that you have a command of chords, because all your chords are broken scales. Whatever, if it's a minor scale, then your chords are in that scale. And then you can match that up with being able to simulate different sounds. You'll be able to take that a little bit further. So yes, there are presets on your Hammond organ as you look to see, well, what are these keys for? They are the ones, if you don't know how to set presets, they will give you, at least this software tells you what they are. A stop flute. Let's see, what key have I not been into? I've been in G. And again, these kind of sounds would be supplement. They wouldn't be the main sound. That's for when you're on when you're actually setting your own drawbars. This drawbar here says say rock, so it gets real loud. I'm not a rock musician, but if I had the song to play, I had no problem with it. Oh, a rock musician. That's a rock song to me. Every praise, yes. You want to do rock, that's the song to use for that setting. It's just many of the newer Hammond players hit the whole terminal too much. Well, I mean, I'll give them this. They're in a new world. And unless you've come up from this world as a first, you're going to try everything. Now you see me. Am I trigger happy with the tremolo? Yes, because I like to hear it when I'm playing. When I reach certain climaxes in a song, but am I 100% going to use it every time I play? No. I surrender all to Him. I freely give. I surrender. I will ever learn and trust. I'm trying to get the lyrics. Him, then the friends me. Now I'll reach for it. Then I'll go back to again. Reach for it again. Reach for it again. Reach for it again. And stay right there. And then end. Drop down the notes. And that's how, at least the approach I use for using the all but dreaded Leslie switch. Some guys just go trigger happy with it because they want to be noticed. I use it to give emphasis to certain parts of a song that I'm playing. Let's see. I don't want to miss any other questions that are there. Forgive me if I did not acknowledge you coming in. But Sam, some are just too heavy with it. A visiting musician broke. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's what I mean. They are not, they haven't been trained. Or they haven't had to pay the bill enough times for someone to come in and repair it, to know that it is not like you're giving somebody a karate chop. You reach over and with your pinky, you adjust it, not your whole hand. But again, the enthusiasm of a Hammond organ musician when they get worked up and whipped up, especially during when the high time of the service comes, musicians get so whipped up that they honestly just want to get it out. I put it like that. So they're like, oh, I want to get over there. I want this, I want to give it all. Let's see if I can pull up the full swell. Which was full swell? That's not full swell. And I never like pulling out all the drawbars because I want to have the flexibility to adjust. When a musician gets into the real high part of the service, they want that. They want that to be heard. That's what they want. They want everybody. So they want the person in the back row to hear the tremolo come on. So their thought process is, let me get to it as quickly as I can, so I can get my slide in there, so I can get my full chord in there. So they swoop over, hit it, just to get that over. And yes, a visiting musician, if they've never been on a good Hammond, they will tear your Hammond up in the name of the Lord. Me, because I know better, being one that had to work with my father to repair the enthusiastic musicians, especially the visiting ones. On Sunday, we were usually in repairing organs on Tuesday through Friday, sometimes on a Saturday. If my father didn't have the parts to repair, he knew to keep tremolo switches, keep the box, to keep, I'm trying to remember the power tubes in the Leslie's, 5U4s, 6A16, 5U4, 6A16s. There's a little one that was in there. I can't remember what that tube was. These are the tubes that would the filaments would actually wear out from being driven so hard. You can actually see the tubes turn red when these musicians would actually overdrive the organ. And in the cases where they burnt out the transformers, yes, the transformers in them, my father would have to haul the whole amplifier out, take it back to his shop, and replace the transformer. Replace the tubes, test it on his organ that we had there to make sure that it worked, and then get it back before service on that next Sunday. So yes, I know all about church enthusiasm. Uncle Stu, oh man, thank you for coming in and for sharing with me. Sharon, thank you very much. Again, I'm just an old timer church musician who trying to help younger musicians who find themselves in the church going from one instrument to the next. And this is information that in my day the older musicians would not share, but I learned it being a student of my father, who was also a church musician and who also repaired church organs. So I tried to give the 411 to musicians so they don't get so frustrated when they make that change over from being a piano player, if the piano worked, a keyboard player, and they're eyeing the top spot. And I often say the Hammond organ, I don't care who you say, the Hammond organ is the top spot. That's the guy that gets all the views on the YouTube clicks. Let me just answer some questions here. Hate to miss any. But Uncle Stu, thanks so much. And for all you gentlemen that are here on this stream with me, check out Uncle Stu's page, The Old Man on the Block. There's some good information there for young men. We're not talking about music there, but we're talking about life. And I go there to hear some things that I didn't experience when I was coming up. So I'm always there to learn. And his whole life is about learning. G-Man, I was taught touch, not banging those keys. Yeah, G-Man, the touch works if you have a keyboard that hasn't been worn out, that has been properly serviced over the years. And you probably will find that 60% of your churches have not had the organ serviced properly. It is an expense to have a guy come in there and remove both manuals just to remove the little brass filaments to clean the contacts, which erode from not being covered up, which helps to keep the organ from becoming damp from being in a cold church, and then the heat turned on and that dampness ruins those contacts. Or from those musicians who come in there and abuse the organ, where they're pulling out the drawbars and they're breaking the wires in the back for all these drawbars in what you see me moving. All of them in the back of the organ are attached to a wire. That wire is attached to a generator that spins at a certain speed to give you that tone. And each one of those generator connections determines what tone you're going to get. Oh yeah, I've been a study of how it works and how it sounds when it's not working. Got me laughing on a call. I forgot I was on. Okay, about tearing up a Hammond organ. And and I was not one of those musicians. I was trained to appreciate appreciate an instrument. So I would get criticized as a young musician for not playing, not tearing up the organ. We had one, and I won't give his name out, but one notable musician came to my home church once, and he began playing the keys with his elbows. And I'm sitting there going, what the? Literally with his elbows. And the audience is going crazy because he's hitting the notes and he's sliding like this. And this is the church home organ where I'm the organist. So of course I'm cringing. How much damage did he just do? Fortunately, it was an older organ. It could take it. But yeah, you do get like this. Your head gets big when you're an organist. Your head grows because when you can do this and somebody in the audience falls out because you just turned on the tremolo and you're way up here, when you do that slide and you get those high notes and turn on that tremolo, the ladies fall out for some reason. And yes, the organist does get the most ladies. Now, again, because I was married at a young age, I would let them know I'm married. Sorry, I'm taken. I don't need an additional headache and an expense. But the other musicians, wherever church they went to, and I'll share some of my history so that you'll understand where I come from. I've had other organists who I would watch them when they would go out to another church, and their girlfriend in that other church would see the girlfriend from the church that came with us, and the look on their face trying to hide, duck, and dodge. And I just shake my head, not me. But the organ, again, why is it such a envious spot? Because of all the perks that come with it. You're playing for the pastor. When he's preaching, it's you and the pastor. The bass player's got to sit quiet. The drummer will help you. The keyboard player, you're looking at him. You're doing this to the keyboard player. The guitar player, you're saying, hold on, because you don't know where I'm going with this. And it's you and the pastor or the person who has to be ministering, and the two of you are in sync. And then you throw that Leslie in there, and you get, as they say, high church. I often said, well, I want to hear what the preacher's saying too. So I would get criticized for not doing all of that until I could see where he was tuned up. And usually when they tune up, you start to get that. And now this is when you are adjusting your drawbars. For those people, musicians who are organists, you know what I'm talking about. When you start to hear him tune up, if you're still in church, if you haven't gone out for a quick soda or a quick burger, and you hear them tuning up, you know what their favorite key is, you're getting tuned up also, because you're like, okay, I know where he's going to go, so I want to go. Yes, I'm an old guy, but I have not forgotten the roots of a church musician. I was there during the time that hooping was becoming the norm in the Pentecostal church. I think I helped to invent a lot of chords, because a lot of the older musicians did not know how to play behind a preacher who came in to hoop. Because I'm a musician and I know jazz chords, and I kind of knew where they were going to go. I said, okay, where's he at? Especially if they go to E flat. Just bring them up and give them that slide down first. And then you kind of see where they're going to go from there. But again, as the organist, every musician is eyeing what the organist is doing, because it's like he's going to work magic. Make sure I didn't miss any comments. Yeah, gospel music for life. I've been put on hold by a visiting minister once. When you get that hold your fire, because you don't know what their cadence is, and you don't like it, because you're thinking, okay, he's ready or she's ready, and they're not. Then you draw back, you sort of fold your arms, you lean back, because the organists don't have a back to their chair. Fortunately, if you're next to a wall, you can actually lean back to a wall, which is what I had. But if you're out in the open, I often say musicians should go for a stretch the back out. Don't let it get so warped being in one position for more than 2 hours that you'll have back issues later on in life. I guess that's part of this talk also. Musicians, most of the time, you do need to stretch yourself, because you're locking yourself into a spot where your hands are. Let me put your hands. Okay. Your hands are here playing, and all this weight, you are now supporting all this weight. You're shifting around, moving your feet, both for the expression pedal and for the foot pedals. And you're constantly doing this, and you're pulling drawbars, and you're doing that. You're getting a workout. I've worn out many a suits after a Sunday morning. I would look on the organ seat, and I would see an imprint of where I was sitting. And I go, oh, gee, you know what? But you did work today. But in taking care of the instrument, number one, don't play it so hard that you do just destroy it. Try to keep it serviced at least every 6 months. Have a guy come in and do the oiling, unless you know how to do that yourself. And if you do have the Hammond Organ oil, it probably still can be purchased. Someone should make that available, and it's just 3 or 4 drops into a little well. I don't think this doesn't show you the back of an organ. I may bring up that image and show you the back of an organ, where you know where that you can drop oil in. And just once every 6 months, 2 or 3 drops, just to keep it from becoming worn. If you have any mechanical aptitude to where you can tighten screws, when these foot pedals become loose, they begin to bounce, and you'll be hearing this every time you hit a note. It's bouncing. It's not broken. There are lug nuts beneath the rear of the foot pedals. You can take them off, I believe, with a Phillips screwdriver to take off the plate, and with a pair of pliers. I think it should be a 5/8 inch socket, but you can do it with a pair of pliers very carefully. Turn that nut clockwise to tighten, and you want to tighten it enough so that it stops bouncing. You don't want to tighten it so much that you break it. Just enough to when you hit it, that pedal, it stops bouncing. And you sort of adjust, and that's like tuning a drum. That you have to hit a drum long enough, it'll fall out of tune. That'll help to tighten those up. Again, these are the tips that you won't get from your church musician friends if they don't know it, or they just used to calling somebody in and paying them $100 just to visit and tell you what's wrong. But if you can do this yourself, that's money you can ask for next when raise time comes. You can say, hey, I saved you $500 by doing XYZ that I learned on YouTube from Mr. Sam. You know, if you're not going to put it in my salary, it'd make a nice Christmas gift or a nice love token. But those things that you can help keep the instrument of your choice working as well as it can. And when it does need servicing, make the plea to your ministry that says, take a special offertory for the organ, unless you're not going to get this. Because pastors want that sound. If they go, hey, what happened to the organ? You tell them it's broken and needs to be repaired. The pastors themselves will be waiting at the church for the repairman to come. I know, because I went riding with my father. There were a lot of pastors there waiting on the repairman. My father, the Hammond organ technician, I should say, not repairman. We didn't repair them. We actually fixed them. We took what was worn and at some point destroyed and made it work again like it was supposed to. I'm not sure I didn't miss anybody else's comments. I'm probably talking more than I intended to, but this is all part of it, learning, transitioning from piano, keyboard to the organ. You have to understand, yes, it is a beast. If you got a real Hammond organ now, if you've got these electronic ones that you can just load up into your car and plug into amplifiers and play, then 90% of what I'm saying doesn't really mean anything to you. But you will have maybe a double set of drawbars if you're lucky, no foot pedals unless you go out and spend $3,500 for the full length foot pedals. Because really these small MIDI ones, they're not good for church use. They're good for practicing, just to know that you can play that note and keep your feet tuned. There we go. Keep your feet in tune. And of course, we want to play chords. Let me go to my preset sound. There's one here I like. That's preset. Oh, I think I changed it when I went in there. There we go. When you just want to have that sound, I want to turn that down a little bit right there. There we go. Take out some of that. I'm listening to what I'm hearing. You just want to work on your chords. And everything I'm doing is what I do on the piano, except when you're on the organ, you can hold a chord and it'll stay there until you let it go. So you can maneuver and manipulate what you're doing. Questions. I'm doing a lot of playing. Let me switch over to my seat. I'm getting all fancy now, learning how to exit stage right. But yeah, the organ is a tremendous tool. I'm gonna take care of a troll. Let's get rid of this troll. There we go. Troll is gone. Make sure I haven't missed any questions. Again, Uncle Stu, thank you for your contribution. Let's see, I haven't missed anything. Herman David, thank you for coming in. What keyboard and bass pedals are you using for your organ setup? I'm using the Axiom 61 keyboard. It's an older version. I think because it's an older version, it doesn't give me the access to the drawbar, to all the drawbar settings that I should have with this software, this software I think is about 2 years old, and the keyboard is probably 10 years old. So I'm going to look at maybe not investing in this version of Axiom, but one that maybe I'll check with the software company, which one do they recommend that I use, which gives me access to all these settings, because I should be able to program the keys to work with any button that I have on the keyboard, and even the manual that I have for this one gave me settings for drawbar use, and it doesn't work. And the only thing I can think of is that because of the span in time of the software, this software wasn't written for this keyboard. So I need to find out what keyboard, what controller, MIDI controller I should say, will work best with this software. Let's see what else I may have missed. Oh, that's because usually I have a keyboard here and I just lay my headphones on it. This time it's an organ, so it will do that. Thank you. If I'm not wearing my headphones, I don't hear it. These are my headphones, and they are heavy, but it's heavy enough that I can hear the sounds that I want to hear it though. Thanks, thank you. Let's see what I may have missed. Chris, just going back. Well, everyone can play, but not everyone has something to say. Okay, Chris Spencer, thank you for coming in. My cousin. Even more challenging when songs are up-tempo or praise break. Help me, brother-in-law. Again, that's the heel-toe method. Don't play with Timberlands, boots, sneakers that have grips on them. When you're gonna play foot pedals, you want your feet to be able to glide across the foot pedal. When I was a musician, I wore Florsheim shoes. They had a very slick bottom. I could glide. I mean, you see me playing and hear me playing the foot pedals here. You've yet to see me on a real Hammond when I'm in my church gear, which is basically I would wear a black suit, white shirt, an appropriately matched tie with my matching handkerchief, and I would have on my Florsheim shoes, which are nice and shined up and slick on the bottom. So when I got to the organ, I got to play. It was though I was like using my left hand on the foot pedals. That's how quickly I can move across. Siobhan, I've got to cover you with software using. I'm covering that. G-Man, worst organ ever plays the Viscount. No harm intended, but they are the worst. Again, I haven't played on them. I've seen people demonstrate them, and when you start to leave the sound of tubes and generated tones, you're always going to have something missing from it. They can simulate it, but it'll never be exactly like it was designed to sound. Gee, man, I always take both my shoes off. Okay, well, both. That's comfortable. If I take off my shoes in church, everybody's going to be caught. Well, yeah. Even Jesus told the blind man after he spat in his face and put the clay in his eye, he told him to go wash. That's all I can say about that right there. Gospel Music for Life. I want to get some MIDI pedals, but they are expensive. You know what? If you play organ in Gospel Music for Life, if you play organ in the church, and if you know your wife's favorite song, I'm just throwing you a little bit of old man wisdom out there. If you know your wife's favorite song, play that on the Hammond organ in church. Get her teared up and all emotional, and you say, baby, I'd love to be able to play this for you at home, but I don't have any MIDI foot pedals. She'll say, how soon do you want them? Try it out. I got the VBM3 on my iPad now. Okay. Do I have an iPad? No, not do I have an iPad. Did I put a organ? Don't think I have put too many sounds on. I upgraded to the iPad Pro last year because I wanted to have the M1 chip in it, and I actually want to be able to get sounds like those. I have the iRig Pro Dual. I haven't taken it out of the box yet. I have it here so that I can load this iPad up full of sounds with a MIDI keyboard and an amplifier or headphones and just see, does it work as good as I've seen everybody demonstrate it? So yeah, that's in my 2022 bucket list of things to do. That really sounds like a Hammond to me, something about the character. Yeah, because I'm playing it through this is the Focusrite 4i3, you're getting the sound directly from the computer through a USB, not USB, it's USB, it's USB-C device, which is really giving the latency is really tight. So it's giving you as the best quality sound. And of course OBS, which for some reason I haven't even tweaked the sound on OBS, and the sound is great. I've actually stopped recording to Pro Tools because OBS software sounds just as good whenever I do audio through it. Save me the time of trying to match up video and audio. We got here. I used to play like most concert musicians with bass on the top menu. Yes, okay. Switch like jazz musicians. Yes. Give you deep, full pitch, not having the twang of many of your brands. Yeah, the Hammond is going to always be the instrument of choice if you have people to help you move it. They say it weighs 400 pounds, and that's without the Leslie. And you got somebody's got to bring the foot pedals and the bench with you, and then set it up. And then mic it correctly. If you're going to be in an open, like in an open theater type setting, the mics have got to be correctly placed around it. So yeah, when my father would repair the organs in the jazz clubs in Harlem, I would see how they would mic the organ, and when he would practice, he would have me sit there and test the organ as he was working on it after he just put it together. So I got a chance to play a little jazz in a jazz club, just testing the organ out. So yeah, I had some fun. And I'm talking about 15, 16 years old. I had some fun when I was a young musician, helping and learning and appreciating what a Hammond organ can do based upon this type of sound you want out of it. Let's see, Sub-Zero. It was one off. I could not say anything, but every Viscount I ever played had that twang. Yeah, they can't. I'm going to have to say that Hammond Suzuki now, because they bought the rights to the Hammond organ name and to that sound. I would have to believe that sound is proprietary, because that's the word to use. I got it out right this time. To that, if someone wants to emulate an organ, you can't take our sound without paying a royalty or a fee for emulating or exactly duplicating what a Hammond sounds like, which is why they give you the option to go into a lot of these organs and tweak it yourself. Let me just pull up this software again. in this software, I could come in here and tweak all these settings. Right now, I have nothing tweaked. Everything is as it was factory set. But you can come in here and start tweaking things to get a particular sound. I could add these other sounds to it to get a particular sound. I could, let's see, there was another setting. Where was the other one? Well, of course, the different cabinets. I could tweak the speed of the Leslie, tweak the way that the mic distances are, the acceleration, deceleration, the slow speed. There's a mixer here. I could put it to a guitar amp. These are all the tweaks that can be done with this software. Now, would it still sound like a Hammond? Yes, but in a different setting. If I was doing let's see, these are different velocity curves, mid gain, mid. I would probably kick up the mid frequency to give it a little bit more deeper bass, but then I don't want it to be muddy. I already switched the amp from the 122 to the 147, and I adjusted the lows up a little bit and the mids up a little bit just so I can hear an actual deeper bass. These are all the things that you can do with software. Now, you can't do that when you walk into a church that has a Viscount organ there, or what's the other one I've heard of? There's 2 or 3 other brands. You can't go in there and start tweaking their settings because you'll get thrown out. If they even if they let you play the organ first, number one, because they would have put so much money into supporting that musician. Gee, man, but brother, somehow so happy with your visiting musician broke. Yeah, okay, I cover. Yeah, they musicians. That's what they will do. They will play happy. They will, in Jesus' name, play to Him and all the angels. They want them all to hear that Leslie come on, and how many times they can rep particular keys. Herman David, thank you for coming in. Yeah, man, they were breaking the organ so much. Wow. Yeah. And again, back in my day as a young musician, because I watched my father repair so many organs, I was not going to be the one to damage it. The organ, and as you saw me playing it, unlike a piano, and that's the one thing I should cover also. When you're playing a piano, that's a percussion instrument first, and before it's an actual musical instrument. By percussion, you have to strike it in order to play it. If you want it to get loud, you've got to strike it harder. I know of one musician in my home church. When I was the organist, I would always try to play so the piano could be heard, because I did my first 9 years on a Steinway piano, and in 9 years maybe broke 3 keys or 3 strings in 9 years. This musician, because he wanted to be heard, and I never play the organ loud, as you can see. That's as loud as you will hear me play. I don't pull all the drawbars out, but he broke 24 strings in 1 month on a Steinway, and no, it wasn't cheap. And I said, the only thing I could figure is that he wanted everybody from the last aisle in the church to know that he was playing. And I said, that makes no sense to beat up an instrument like that. But if you're coming from a piano where you felt the only way you're going to be heard was to strike it harder, even some of your keyboards that are in a piano mode, I know you guys can amp it up, but you're also striking it because it's emulating a piano. You can break keys on the organ, especially doing the sliding back and forth. It's really, there's a way to slide palms down, wrist up. Can't show it because I don't have the camera, but you know, if you're going to slide across the organ, palm down. In other words, you're going to slide here, and the wrist up. So if you're going to slide, so these fingers don't get caught on the keys while you're doing this. You want the palms to be up, palm down. In other words, just palm down and your wrist up when you're going to slide. Some guys slide like this, and the side of their hand will catch a key while they're in their Jesus moment and break it. And you get that oops. And I always said, if you're careful, at least for me, I always wanted to control the oops. So I control the oops by remembering if I want to do a slide, plan it, number one. Don't just do it out of emotion. Plan it where it's going to be planned. Decide, am I going to go from left to right or from right to left? Palm up so that none of the fingers get caught. Slide it down and then remove the hand so I don't slide all the way down and hit the Leslie switch and break that. Let's see, I had to make sure I missed any other questions here. What about the bass pedals? I'm sorry, I missed that one. They're the Roland, make sure I get it right. The Roland PK5 pedals. I've had them now over 10 years. Still work great. Socks are the best people to play in, yes. The Viscount sounds pretty good, though in the real Leslie I've heard it is the HX3. In that Viscount, I'm not sure if it's the Viscount. Some of the other organs that are coming out, maybe even the Hammond ones, they allow you to plug a real Leslie into it so that you can get that tone that you would get from an actual Leslie versus a standalone speaker using, again, this uses the simulated Leslie sound. Sounds real, but to have that whirling sound from a real Leslie, there's really nothing like it. As I say, in the right setting, you'll have the ladies swooning, fainting just about when it comes on to that certain note, yet you hit that high pitch. And again, I won't say that it's like a dog whistle, but and I've seen it, and I've been careful to use it when I was a young musician, because I would always get approached. Your brother Talbot, when you hit that note, I go, here we go. Yes, I'm married, happily married. I got kids. Yes, I know that note. I know that note did it for you. Yes, I do know. Thank you. It's only the goodness of God, and then go on. But yes, the organists do draw. And I'll just leave it at that. I make sure to have insurance on my instrument. If I break it, get something new. Yeah. Or if you're a mechanically minded and you like taking things apart, again, coming up in a household where my father was also not just a Hammond organ tech, but he also repaired radios and televisions, phonographs, washing machines, toasters, egg beaters if he had to fix it. I learned to take things apart and put it back together fluently. That's how I kept my first job for 45 years, taking things apart and putting it back together and making it work. I realize they don't teach that skill set today, but it is nothing wrong with going out and ordering from Amazon a tool kit. Let me see if I have anything here that'll match it. I'm trying to think, where do I have it now? Every musician, church musician that plays on a Hammond. Why I don't see one here? I have a drawer full of stuff. Okay, well, I'll just show these. Every musician should have one of these and one of these. And used to have a Phillips screwdriver in here. I must have put it into a service case that I have. But as you can see, I have tools. I still keep tools around because if something loosens up, you want to be able to reach real quick for it and tighten it up so that so that the service doesn't have to stop. I don't see. I used to have a Phillips screwdriver around here. I know we used to do this years ago, where you had one of these pocket knives, which came with a set of tools in them. This is a little wisdom for the young musicians. Trying to open these things up. There we go. These are tight. All right, here we go. Pocket knife that has, the can opener on one end. There's your Phillips. There's your Phillips right there. There's a, what is that? I'm not sure what that is. But you get all different types of tools in an all-in-one. Ain't not to keep it on you. If you play for a church, something should loosen up real quick. You want to be able to address it by just pulling it out of the Hammond organ seat, which has a lot of space in it, since nobody uses hymn books anymore. You can place it in there. It's even got a hacksaw in there. I don't know what you want to use that for, but these things, they do come in handy for an emergency. Before you call the service tech in to tighten up something that just loosened up, you should be able to go in there and handle it yourself. Save the church some money, and as I say, when Christmas time or bonus time rolls around, just make mention that, hey, I saved you a $300 service visit from the tech because Mr. Talbot showed me how to do it. Well, again, I thank for those who came in. I've been on now an hour and 27 minutes. I wasn't expecting to be on this long. So Uncle Stu, I want to thank you if you're still here. Old Man on the Block sharing with me with a super chat. I really appreciate that. Guys, if any of these live streams that I'm having is helping you, please let me know. I'm trying to determine what I want to talk about. I love the one-on-one conversation. Sometimes I get wrapped up in playing music so much, I don't give you the breakdown as to why I do this, why I do that. But make sure I covered everything on the organ, expression pedal, foot pedals, Leslie, the drawbar settings, and some technical things. Many things that you can service yourself or have serviced in the rear of it. Oh, well, thank you, Gospel Music for Life. I'm going to have more of these podcast type things here in 2022. And I even, thanks to those of you who help support this channel, like just by your views and good men like Uncle Stu, Old Man on the Block, I'm able to upgrade what I got going on here. As you can see now, I have made an investment in I've changed my whole lighting system. If you watch one of my videos, you saw that I was playing in an actual blue light. Welcome, Zelda. So I'm going to set up my studio in a way that I'll be in I won't say in a jazz club setting, but I'll be able to change the lighting a lot better, where I'll have the background in blue, the keyboard light shining on the keyboard, and maybe me in another different color, just to change the atmosphere and change the setting. I have a keyboard, the Korg Chrome, which I haven't unleashed in a while. I did last year. I want to get back to that. My friend played the Brazilian sleigh bells. It rocked the house. He played a Hammond at the King Loss. Oh, welcome, Twinny. I like the intro chorus from Georgia Mass Choir, Another Chance. Another Chance. No, that's okay, Zelda. Quite all right. No, quite all right. The Hammond organ, we often, as musicians, thought that God's gift to the church was the Hammond organ. No, God's gift to the world was the Hammond organ, because the church got in on it late. The other people were playing the Hammond before we did. Church had to take out loans to get a Hammond organ. Where other people, you go to any baseball club. When they used to play "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," that was a Hammond organ, a different version of the Hammond organ. We only see the B3, C3, RT3 version of the Hammond organ, or the A100, but there were Hammond organs, different types, and even the more fancier ones already out there. already out there. So, and again, you never know as a musician where you're going to find yourself. You may have to walk into a situation where you thought that they had everything in place and the organ is there, and you have to wind up playing it. But looked at on YouTube, I guess back in my day we had Alfred Bolden who did an organ uh, album, and Billy Preston did an organ album. I think it was Gospel on My Soul, the Billy Preston one. Who was the other organist we had? I'm trying to remember the organist that actually put out straight Hammond organ albums where all they did was play Hammond organ. Of course, in the jazz world, you had is it Jimmy McGriff? I should know all these guys. I'm just going to do a quick look. Jazz organist. Everybody knows Joey D. Francisco, and a gentleman that just passed last year. So that you can know that the organ has been played. Okay, Jimmy Smith, Lonnie Smith, he passed last year. Joey DeFrancisco, Jimmy McGriff, Richard Holmes, Jack McDuff, Larry Young, and of course the women who are tremendous organists. Barbara, I can't quite pronounce her name. Barbara Dennerine, Rhoda Scott, Tony Monaco, James T. Booker, Don Platters. Was reading all the names of these tremendous Hammond organ players. Reuben Wilson, Klaus Wunderlich, Milt Hirth, Brian Anger, Charles Earlin, Johnny Hammond, Corey Henry's on this list. Glad to see his name there. Johnny Patton, Milt Bucker, Eddie. Again, these are all people who I never had to learn who they were, but they were in their right tremendous Hammond organ players. You see me play and you go, oh, Sam, you really working that thing. No, I am doing, well, of course, at our church world, Twinkie Clark, she was the B3 queen, but there were other musicians besides her. When you say Twinkie Clark, then you have to mention Butch Haywood from Institutional Church of God in Christ in Brooklyn, New York. He was one of the idols as an organist, just by his way he could just sit down and very calmly play the organ and captivate an audience just by playing the organ without a bass player, because he couldn't play with a bass player. His bass was his left hand, that actual Brooklyn sound. So there were so many musicians who, in their matriculation of music, came by way of, and from the church world anyway, landed on the Hammond organ. And usually when you come to the Hammond organ, you very rarely move off of it. That's like, for some musicians, the last stop. As I say, that's the beast. That's the organ that raises the temperature in a room of people that are singing, or people that are in worship in the church world, or in the jazz world. When the organ starts, everybody now stops to listen. Oh, two speeds, slow and too fast. Yeah, that would take probably putting in another Leslie kit that would be able, and changing the motor so that it has 3 steps in it. And also, yeah, the motors in the Leslies have to be oiled also. Those bearings will freeze up if they're not kept oiled. And eventually they will wear out to where you start to hear like I want to say what kind of sound. When you would turn it off to slow it down, it would be like like someone is pulling a chain on a street. And you know that that's now wearing out. Thomas Whitfield, he did so much on the piano. I would probably say he maybe touched it, but on his albums, Thomas Whitfield was strictly piano. From his albums and his songs, I learned to get that jazz feel. You'll hear me do some of his chords, a lot of his chords when I'm playing, from the late Thomas Whitfield. Play the song from the old radio station, had stores running around. Everybody remember that one. Play the song from the old radio station, had stories of turning life. Oh, okay. That one I don't remember. But yeah, the organ is the Ethel Smith. There were so many on that list. Let's see if it was Ethel Smith on here. I'm looking at a list on YouTube. No, excuse me, on Google of organ players. The list is long. Um, we have a guy that's plays. He used to play on the Tonight Show. I forget his name. He was a tremendous organ player also. And I think one of the Tonight Show hosts played the organ. Yeah, a lot of history there on the four Hammond organ players. I don't see Ethel. I can get her last name. I don't see her on this list. I'm just looking at all the people who Google has as what they call jazz Hammond organ. And then you have organ players who were not jazz musicians. They played classical, and they were just as good on the organ. They were just as good. Hey, Ethel Smith. I didn't see her on that Google list. That doesn't mean that she doesn't belong there, but she didn't make it on that search. But yeah, I'm going to let everyone go. Appreciate everyone coming in. Those that came in late, Twinny and Zelda, thanks for coming in, sharing some time, sharing your thoughts. Also, this forum that I'm using is so that I can have a better in touch communication with those who have blessed me by watching all of my videos and leaving comments. As you can see, I'm working on my lighting here. I'm not. In fact, these are the actual new lights that you see that are on now. So I'm not worried about them going out because they are now wired into a powered USB hub I have. So, and I want to do more. I'm going to have more of these. Be able to communicate and share my thoughts, and then get your thoughts also. Get your thoughts also. Again, thanks for coming in, sharing some time with me. It's 4:51 here on the East Coast. I may or may not come back on later tonight because I'm always watching other YouTubers getting ideas from the way that they have podcasts. Sub-Zero, thank you. Just so I can learn to articulate. If you had known me 60 years ago, yeah, 50 years ago, I wouldn't say a word. I always felt that I didn't have anything to say. So now that I'm older in age, I like to think that I've gathered enough experience to be able to speak something that is relevant and relative. That old song, Unshackled. Yeah, there are a lot of songs there, Zelda, that I'd never ventured into because I didn't have to. Even when I go to YouTube and I'll do a search for what are the current praise and worship songs, just to see what I'm missing. And there's so many songs that are out there that I go, wow, gee, I missed it. I didn't learn that one. I should have. Didn't learn that one. But usually I like to leave one of these sessions by playing something. Since I'm in the organ mode, of that dude that played he wrote one song. That was one time. Let me call him. Never shall forget it. He really passed away. It was the last few years. Oh, okay. Not sure what that was, but I think I'll do something while I'm in the organ mode. Just because again we are going to be celebrating Martin Luther King's birthday. I believe it's on the 17th. So that's this coming weekend. So I think I did it on my last setting, We Shall Overcome in G flat. Let me do an organ version of it also. Keep those robocalls online. That's to prevent them from calling your auntie or grandma, scare and waste their time. Only way to slow them down, I record their calls and post them. Oh, okay. Oh, you work with James Hall. James Hall also, again, what tremendous musicians. My cousin, Richard Tobert Sr., another tremendous organist. He learned the styles of Joey DeFrancisco and all the jazz organists and incorporated into all his playing. And of course, the great, the magician on the organ, John Peters, who's a dear family friend. not just of me, but also of my cousin Rich Tolbert and my other cousin Eugene Tolbert. The Tolbert family is full of church organists. We all learned from each other as we got older. We all have our own style. My brother, again, another church musician who plays the organ, he and I have different styles. He's from one genre of music because I'm younger. I'm from a different genre. Mine takes on the feel of the big band sound, the classical sound, the contemporary fusion sound. That's I mix everything together. So everyone who sits on the organ becomes their own musician, and the organ lets you know what type of musician they are. So I'm gonna go back to my organ. I'm gonna give you "We Shall Overcome," not a lot, just enough to, in commemoration of the birthday celebration for Martin Luther King that's coming.